How to speak without preparation. Communication skill. Trust the power of presence over perfections over perfection. Anchor yourself in a central message. Tap into personal stories and experiences. Master the art of structure on the spot. Past, present, future method. 5. Learn to stall with style. Buy time without losing the audience. 6. Read the room. The audience is your feedback loop. Harness emotions, not just words. 8. Speak to serve, not to impress. Train in spontaneity. Practice the unscripted life. Silence is a tool, not a threat. Introduction. There will be moments in your life when you're handed a mic, not because you were scheduled to speak, but because destiny placed it in your hand. No script, no notes, no preparation, just you, a message, and the room watching. That's the moment when many shrink, freeze, or falter. But I believe that moment was never meant to expose your weakness. It was meant to reveal your depth. You see, real power in communication isn't found in polished presentations. It's found in the presence of a person who dares to speak from the heart without fear. We've all been there. Someone calls your name in a meeting unexpectedly, or you're invited to say a few words at a family gathering, or you're placed on a stage without a moment's notice, and suddenly your heart races. You feel your tongue freeze. You say to yourself, I don't know what to say. But what if I told you that you do know what to say? That the words are already inside you, waiting not to be scripted, but to be stirred. Speaking without preparation isn't about being reckless. It's about being ready in the soul. The greatest communicators aren't those who memorize. They're those who connect. They connect with their moment, their message, and their mission. That's what makes words land, not eloquence, but authenticity. And if you can learn to speak from a place of clarity, conviction, and compassion, even in the absence of a script, your voice will never be silenced by fear again. This message today is not just about communication, it's about confidence. It's about realizing that you are more equipped than you think. It's about learning how to draw from the well of wisdom inside you, even when you're thrown into the deep end. If you're ready to never be caught off guard again, if you want to unlock the secret of spontaneous impact, then this message is for you. Let's uncover the truth about how to speak without preparation and still leave a lasting impression. Trust the power of presence over perfections over perfection. When you're thrust into a moment where you must speak without preparation, your natural instinct might be to panic. Your mind scrambles for the perfect sentence, the most impressive vocabulary, the ideal opening line. But here's the truth. The people in front of you aren't looking for a flawless performance. They're looking for you. In that moment, your greatest power doesn't lie in preparation, it lies in presence. What is presence? It's not standing tall or speaking loudly, though those can help. Presence is when your whole being enters the room. Your mind is focused. Your body is grounded. Your spirit is engaged. Presence means that you're not thinking about what just happened 5 minutes ago, or worrying about what might go wrong next. You're here fully, completely, authentically. Many believe that being present without preparation is weakness. In reality, it's a sign of strength. Because presence says, I trust that what I carry inside me is enough. You might not have notes, a PowerPoint, or a practice delivery, but what you do have is your life, your insight, your heart. And when that flows through you without filter, you create connection. And connection is more powerful than perfection. People are not waiting to be impressed. They're longing to be inspired. And inspiration doesn't require a script. Think about the most powerful moments in your life when someone encouraged you, corrected you, or comforted you. Were they reading from a script? No, they were speaking from the raw center of their being. That's what presence does. It speaks truth wrapped in humanity. To speak without preparation, you must start by silencing the voice of fear that demands perfection. Perfection says, don't say anything until it's brilliant. Presence says, say what's true, then brilliance will follow. Perfection will paralyze your tongue. But presence sets it free. You don't need the perfect sentence. You need the sincere one. You don't need the smooth transition. You need the honest statement. You don't need the clever quote. You need the courageous voice. Here's the paradox. When you stop trying to impress people, you begin to impact them. The pressure to say something powerful is often what robs your voice of power, because it forces you out of authenticity and into performance. And performance is fragile when you're unprepared. But when you speak from presence, your words come from a deeper place, a place of truth, conviction, and clarity. Let me give you an example. A man once stood in front of a crowd after the sudden loss of his friend. He had no speech ready, no outline, no notes. All he had was his emotion, his grief, and his love. And when he opened his mouth, the words were shaky but real. His voice cracked, but people listened. He didn't craft sentences. He shared his soul. And not a single person in that room forgot what he said. Why? Because it was soaked in presence. Presence communicates sincerity. And sincerity is magnetic. Even when your words are simple, your presence gives them weight. People can feel when you are fully there. They can tell when you're not trying to impress, but to connect. And when you connect, you captivate. You don't need polished prose, you need purposeful presence. In today's world, we've become too obsessed with sounding good. But sounding good without sincerity is noise. True communication isn't just about diction and delivery. It's about energy. The energy of presence cannot be faked. It's what happens when your spirit aligns with your voice, when your soul enters the room before your words do. But how do you develop that presence? The first step is embracing your vulnerability. Yes, you might stumble. Yes, you might pause. Yes, you might forget something. But none of that disqualifies your message. Vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a bridge. It tells your audience, I'm like you, I'm human. I'm not perfect, but I'm present. And that's all people need to trust you. Presence also requires you to listen while you speak, not just to the sound of your voice, but to the heartbeat of the room. Presence means you're aware, you're paying attention, you're not rehearsing in your head while talking, you're engaged, fully, authentically, and respectfully. That level of attentiveness makes people feel seen and heard, even while you're the one speaking. There's a phrase that says, people may forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. That's presence. Presence speaks in such a way that even if the words fade, the impact remains. Because presence carries emotion. It transmits truth. It moves the human heart, not just the human ear. You might ask, but what if I go blank? Let me tell you, silence is not your enemy. In fact, presence turns silence into power. A short pause, delivered with intention, can be more impactful than a long sentence. Presence doesn't rush, it breathes. It trusts the moment. It allows the room to feel what's being said, not just hear it. Presence is also rooted in identity. You must know who you are beyond the fear of failure. If you draw your worth from sounding smart, the moment you stumble, your confidence collapses. But if you draw your confidence from knowing that your worth is not in your words, but in your willingness to show up, you'll never be shaken. Many of us think we need information to speak confidently. But confidence doesn't come from information. It comes from alignment. When your spirit, your values, and your voice align in the moment, you speak with authority, even if you have no notes. Presence is not an accessory to your speech. It is the essence of your speech. Great communicators don't hide behind words. They shine through them. And when you learn to show up, not just with your mouth, but with your whole self, you command attention without demanding it. That's what presence does. It doesn't shout. It resonates. And here's the beautiful truth. Presence can be practiced. You can train yourself to become present under pressure. One way is to rehearse presence in low-stakes environments. Speak up in small groups. Offer your thoughts in casual conversations. Respond to prompts without preparation. The more you do it, the more your mind learns to trust your inner voice. Another practice is grounding. Before you speak, take a breath. Feel your feet on the floor. Remind yourself, I don't need to perform. I just need to show up. When you start from that space of stillness, your words carry strength. Because you're not speaking from stress, you're speaking from substance. So let go of the myth that you have to be perfect to be powerful. You don't. You just have to be present, fully here, fully you, fully open to the moment. The world doesn't need another polished speaker. It needs more present ones. Because presence isn't just about communication, it's about transformation. And the most powerful messages are not rehearsed. They're released. If you learn nothing else today, let it be this. Your presence is more powerful than your perfection. Don't wait for the perfect moment, the perfect words, or the perfect plan. Stand in your truth, speak from your heart, show up for the moment, and trust. Yes, trust that what you carry is enough. Anchor yourself in a central message. When you're asked to speak without preparation, it's easy to feel like you're drifting in a sea of thoughts. You have so many ideas, but no clear direction. This is where most people sink, not because they lack wisdom, but because they lack an anchor. That anchor is your central message, the one idea, the core truth, the essence of what you want to convey. Think of your central message as the lighthouse in a foggy moment. You might be unsure of your introduction, your structure, or your exact words. But if you know the one point you're trying to drive home, you can always find your way back. Your central message is the compass for your unscripted speech. Let's simplify it. If someone asks you to speak at a surprise birthday party, what's your message? It's gratitude and celebration. If you're asked to say a few words in a crisis, what's your message? It's comfort and hope. If you're handed the mic at a meeting, your message could be alignment, vision, or clarity. One message. That's all you need. You don't have to say everything. You have to say something clearly. Here's the secret. When people speak without preparation, they often try to overcompensate by saying too much. They wander. They ramble. They throw out multiple points in hopes that one will land. But when you focus on a single, powerful idea and build your words around that, the audience stays with you. You won't lose them because you're not lost yourself. The power of a central message is also that it helps you stay calm. When you're speaking off the cuff, the nervous system naturally kicks into overdrive. But anchoring yourself in one simple message creates mental clarity. It eliminates the overwhelm of what should I say and replaces it with how can I say this message effectively? Let's say your central message is we grow through challenges. You can immediately begin to draw from life stories, quotes, personal experiences, or observations to reinforce it. You can start with a simple story about a hard moment you faced, then connect it to how growth came through it. You can then apply it to your audience and say, and maybe some of you here are in a moment like that. Without needing a script, you're now building momentum around your message. Now, anchoring in a central message also helps when you lose your train of thought. Yes, even the best speakers do. But if you forget a point, or if your mind blanks for a moment, just return to your core idea. Remind yourself and the audience why you're speaking in the first place. This creates continuity and confidence, even when the structure may not be perfect. A good central message can often be expressed in one sentence. Here are a few examples. Every setback is setting you up for a comeback. True leadership starts with listening. You are more prepared than you think. Small actions lead to big impact. When you lock into a message like that, your entire speech becomes a reinforcement of that truth. You don't have to memorize a script. You just build around your anchor. Another benefit of anchoring yourself in a message is that it automatically increases your authenticity. You're not just trying to sound good. You're trying to share something real. And real messages resonate. People don't remember word for word what you said. They remember what you stood for, what you believed, what truth you carried into the room. And here's the beautiful thing. Your message can evolve as you speak. Sometimes the moment reveals a deeper meaning than you expected. That's okay. Presence and message work together. If your message becomes clearer as you speak, embrace it. Let it lead you. You're not locked into a manuscript. You're flowing with meaning. Let me offer you a powerful technique. As soon as you realize you're going to speak, even with no time to prepare, pause and ask yourself, if I had to leave them with just one idea, what would it be? That one question will crystallize your focus. And from that place of clarity, you can build a message that feels unified and compelling. This technique also works wonders in personal conversations. Maybe someone's pouring their heart out to you, and they ask, what do you think? You don't need a perfect answer. You need one meaningful idea, one truth, one piece of light. That's what people are hungry for. Not speeches, but significance. In any spontaneous speech, when in doubt, simplify. Don't try to be profound, try to be clear. Your goal isn't to impress. Your goal is to impart. And clarity is a gift. It's a gift to your listeners and a gift to yourself. One clear message is better than 10 scattered points. So whether you're called to speak at a funeral or a festival, in a classroom or a crisis, remember this: you don't have to say everything, but you do need to say something that matters. And anchoring yourself in that central message will ensure that what you say cuts through the noise and reaches the heart. Tap into personal stories and experiences. When you're speaking without preparation, your most valuable resource is not a clever quote or a famous statistic. It's your own life. Your experiences, your lessons, your highs, and even your lows, they carry more weight than any theory ever could. Why? Because people connect to stories, and the most powerful stories are the ones you've lived. Here's the truth. When people hear a story, they lean in. Stories disarm defenses. They bypass the mind and go straight to the heart. A good story doesn't just deliver a message, it becomes the message. It paints pictures. It evokes emotion. It makes the abstract concrete. And when you speak without preparation, your stories become the bridge between what you're feeling and what they need to hear. Many people hesitate to share personal stories because they think their life is too ordinary. But what you consider ordinary, someone else desperately needs. A struggle you went through last year might be the very encouragement someone needs today. A lesson you learned the hard way might spare someone else a lifetime of pain. Your stories matter, not because they're dramatic, but because they're real. Let's say you're called to speak without warning at an event. You don't have time to research, but you do have time to remember. You recall a moment in your past, perhaps a time you overcame fear, dealt with failure, or discovered purpose. You take that memory and place it in the center of your message. That story becomes the platform on which every word stands. It grounds your message in humanity. The beauty of using personal stories is that they're always accessible. You don't have to memorize them. You live them. They're already inside you. You just have to learn to pull them out with purpose. And the key to doing that spontaneously is to begin building a library of your own stories in your mind. Take time in your quiet moments to reflect on a time you failed but learned, a moment you succeeded after struggle, a decision you regret and what it taught you, a person who changed your life, a season that tested your faith or character. You don't need to rehearse these stories. Just become familiar with the emotions and insights tied to them. That way, when the moment comes, you'll be able to reach inward and retrieve a story that fits the moment organically. Now, how do you use a personal story effectively in spontaneous speaking? Keep it simple. Don't overload the story with unnecessary details. Focus on the turning point, the tension, the moment of transformation. The audience doesn't need every character in the scene. They need the emotional truth behind it. To tie it to your message. Every story needs to serve a purpose. If your central message is resilience is built, not born, then your story should reflect a moment you had to build resilience. That connection makes the story memorable and meaningful. 3. Let your emotions be present. You don't have to dramatize, but do humanize. If it was hard, let the audience feel the struggle. If it was funny, allow yourself to laugh. Emotion isn't a distraction, it's the delivery system of authenticity. Remember, vulnerability is powerful. You don't always have to be the hero of your story. Sometimes the most impactful stories are the ones where you were weak, confused, or defeated. Yet you came through with a lesson. That's what people relate to. In spontaneous moments, when your mind feels like it's scrambling for content, stories give structure. They give flow. Start with a story. Then draw a truth from it. Then apply that truth to the audience. That's a 3-part rhythm you can repeat anytime, anywhere. Story row lesson. Application. Let me show you how this plays out. Imagine you are asked to speak at a leadership camp. No prep time. You step up and say, "A few years ago, I made a decision that cost me a team I loved. I thought I knew better than everyone else. I didn't listen. I pushed my own agenda. And I lost the trust of the very people I was supposed to lead. That experience crushed me, but it also changed me. It taught me that leadership is more about listening than leading, more about humility than authority. And I believe some of you here are being shaped to lead, not by titles, but by transformation." That's presence. That's power. That's personal storytelling. People don't remember data. They remember moments. They remember the image of you sitting in your car crying after a failure. They remember the time you stood up for someone even though it cost you something. They remember the way you described your first heartbreak or the fear in your voice when you faced uncertainty. These moments stick, and they stick because they're human. Your life is not just a series of events. It's a collection of messages waiting to be spoken. And when you learn to mine your memories, your message will never run dry. You don't need a podium to prepare. You are your preparation. You are your material. In fact, the more personal your story, the more universal your impact. Why? because the specific details of your life carry emotional truths that everyone can relate to. Your story may be yours, but the feelings, the decisions, the doubts, they're shared by everyone. And here's what's beautiful. Your story will reach someone only you can reach. You might think this story isn't deep enough, but for someone else, it's a lifeline. And you'll never know who's waiting on the other side of your honesty until you open your mouth and share. So the next time you're asked to speak without preparation, don't panic. Remember, your stories are your safety net. Your memories are your message. And your life is your library. Speak from it boldly. 4. Master the art of structure on the spot. Past, present, future method. When you're speaking without preparation, one of the hardest parts is knowing how to organize your thoughts. You may have a story, a message, or even a powerful idea, but without structure, your words can feel scattered. That's why one of the simplest, most effective frameworks you can carry with you is the past, present, future method. This method gives you an instant roadmap. You don't need notes. You don't need a script. You just need to guide your audience through a journey in 3 simple steps: where things were, where they are now, and where they're going. Start with the past. This helps create context. Share a quick backstory or background to your topic. For example, if you're speaking about growth, begin with a season in your life where you felt stuck or afraid. The past connects with the audience's shared experience of struggle and sets the stage for your message. Then move to the present. This is your pivot point. What changed? What realization hit you? What breakthrough began to shift things? This is where your core message emerges. The present moment is where transformation lives. And that's what people are listening for. Speak in a way that reflects clarity, courage, and self-awareness. Finally, lead your audience into the future. This is where you inspire. Point them forward. Tell them what's possible. Speak hope. Speak faith. Speak vision. If the past connects and the present shifts, the future lifts. Let's say you're asked to speak about overcoming fear. You might say, "There was a time when fear controlled every decision I made. Past, but something changed. I realized that fear wasn't a wall, it was a doorway. I started taking one small risk at a time. And now I see that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to keep walking anyway." I believe some of you here are at the edge of something great, and all that's missing is one bold step forward. Future. 3 parts. Clear, simple, powerful. The past, present, future model helps your audience follow you without getting lost. It also helps you stay grounded in the flow of your thoughts. No matter how spontaneous the moment is, this structure gives your words shape. Even if you forget your point or get sidetracked, you can quickly ask yourself, have I given context? Have I shown where I am now? Have I cast vision for what's ahead? If you answer those 3, you've given a full, impactful message without a single note. In spontaneous speaking, structure brings clarity. And when clarity meets authenticity, you become unforgettable. 5. Learn to stall with style. Buy time without losing the audience. When you are put on the spot, there's a moment of internal panic where your brain says, say something, anything. That's when people tend to blurt, ramble, or say things they regret. But the truth is, you don't need to panic. You simply need to learn the lost art of stalling with style. Yes, you can stall, you can buy time, and you can do it in a way that not only covers your internal processing, but actually increases your connection with the audience. The goal is not to fill the silence with noise. The goal is to use transitional moments wisely while you gather your thoughts and step into your message. Let's start with this powerful truth. Pausing is not weakness, it's wisdom. A pause buys you mental space. It gives your audience a moment to reflect. It creates anticipation. Many great speakers are not quick talkers. They're strategic pausers. So if you ever need a few seconds to collect your thoughts, breathe, pause intentionally, look at the audience, smile if appropriate. That pause is not empty space. It's pregnant with possibility. Next, learn to use buffer phrases, natural conversational transitions that give you a few seconds to think. Here are a few powerful examples. That's a great question. Let me take a moment to reflect on that. You know, when I first think about that topic, a few things come to mind. There's so much to say here. Let me begin with what feels most relevant. Let's take a step back for a second and consider the bigger picture. These phrases may seem simple, but they are powerful tools. Why? Because they buy time with dignity. They allow you to think without looking lost. You're still in control, still engaging, and the audience respects your intention. Another strategy is repeating or summarizing the prompt. If someone asks you a spontaneous question, don't rush to answer. Instead, reframe it. This technique buys you time and also gives clarity. For example, question: how do you stay confident in tough times? You staying confident in tough times. That's something I think all of us wrestle with, especially when things feel out of control. By the time you finish repeating or reflecting on the question, your brain has likely found a direction to go. You can also tell a mini story that naturally leads to your main point. Even if you're not sure what your exact message will be, a story can give your mind space to catch up. You might say, I remember a time when I had to make a decision under pressure. I had no preparation, no clear plan, but I realized something in that moment. Now you're speaking, you've bought time, you've drawn them in, and now the path forward becomes clearer. Finally, ask a rhetorical question. This gives both you and the audience something to process. For example, have you ever been in a moment where you felt completely unprepared? What if the thing you fear is actually your greatest opportunity? Why do we think we need perfection when authenticity is what truly connects? These questions don't just give you space. They elevate the room. They stir thought. They create tension. And they put the spotlight back on the audience while you realign yourself internally. The art of stalling with style is not about manipulation, it's about maturity. It's about knowing that you don't have to rush truth, that silence is not a threat, that presence is more powerful than panic. The moment you stop fearing pauses is the moment your spontaneity becomes strategic. Remember, great communicators don't just speak well, they think well under pressure. And part of thinking well is giving yourself permission to pause, reflect, and find your words with grace. So the next time you're caught off guard, don't scramble. Stall with style. Own the moment. Let silence serve you, and speak with strength. 6. Read the room. The audience is your feedback loop, 1,000 plus words. When you're thrust into a speaking situation without preparation, you might feel like you're flying blind, talking into a void. But here's the great news. Your audience is not passive. They're an active feedback system. Their body language, facial expressions, and energy will tell you when you're connecting and when you're losing them. Learning to read the room transforms spontaneous speeches from risky improvisations into dynamic conversations. Observe nonverbal cues before you even say a word. Take a moment to scan the room. Posture. Are people leaning forward? Back straight, eyes on you? That's a sign of engagement. Facial expressions. Smiles, nods, raised eyebrows, each tells a story. If you see confusion, pause and clarify. If you see excitement, lean into that energy. Energy level. Notice the overall vibe. Is it tense, relaxed, distracted? Match your tone to the energy, then guide it where you need it to go. By learning to pick up on these signals, you can course correct on the fly. If the room seems disengaged, drop formality, ask a quick rhetorical question, or tell a vivid story. If the room seems tense or somber, slow down, soften your voice, and bring in a moment of empathy. 2. Mirror and match. Mirroring is a subtle yet powerful technique. When you mirror your audience's energy level, posture, or speaking volume, you create a sense of rapport without saying a word. Then, once that connection is established, you can gradually shift the energy to wherever you want it to go. If the group is quiet and reflective, begin gently. Pause more, speak slower. Lower your volume. If the group is energetic, you can increase your pace and volume to meet them. Once you've established alignment, you can lead the mood upward or downward, depending on your message. This mirror and lead approach lets you steer the audience's emotional journey instead of hoping for the best. 3. Use micro polls and questions. One of the most effective ways to gauge engagement and involve your listeners is to ask quick, simple questions and observe the response. Thumbs up, down. So far, does that make sense? Thumbs up if yes, thumbs down if you're lost. One-word check-ins. If you had to sum up your current mood in one word, what would it be? Show of hands. How many of you have ever felt completely unprepared to speak? These micro polls serve 2 purposes. They buy you a few seconds to gather your thoughts, and they give you instant feedback. If 50% of the hands go up, you know exactly what direction to take next. If only a few responders, you can adjust accordingly. Adapt your content in real time. Reading the room isn't just about energy, it's about relevance. As you speak, listen for keywords or phrases your audience uses when they respond or ask questions. If someone in the audience uses a particular term or shares an anecdote, echo that language to show you're attuned. Audience anecdote. I remember Jane over here said, "I felt paralyzed by fear." That resonates. Fear paralyzes, but presence mobilizes. Local references. If you're speaking in a specific town or organization, reference a known event or inside joke to deepen connection. Professional jargon. Mirror the industry terms or terminology your audience uses to demonstrate credibility and empathy. By weaving these real-time references into your speech, you transform a monologue into a dialogue. Your words become theirs. Manage pace and volume. A sudden dip in volume, a staccato pace, or an elongated pause can jar an audience out of engagement. Conversely, a well-timed shift in pace or volume can recapture attention. Volume, speak more softly to draw listeners in, or increase volume to build excitement. Pace, slow down to emphasize a point or give listeners time to reflect. Speed up to convey energy or urgency. Pauses, use strategic silence after a strong statement to let it sink in. Each of these vocal controls is a direct response to what you observe in the room. For instance, if heads are nodding too quickly, as if they're racing ahead in thought, slow down to bring everyone back together. 6. Watch for audience fatigue. Even the most engaged room will have natural ebbs and flows. If you catch yawns, shifting in seats, or scarce eye contact, it's a sign to re-energize. Change the format. Move from speaking to asking a question. Introduce a brief activity, a quick show of hands, or a one-sentence partner share can reset focus. Inject humor or anecdote. A lighthearted story or relevant joke can revive flagging attention. If you ignore these signs, you risk losing the audience entirely. But if you respond immediately, even with a brief interactive moment, you reconnect and regain momentum. Leverage small wins. When you notice positive feedback, smiles, nods, laughter, amplify that moment. Repeat the phrase that elicited the reaction. Pause afterward to let the energy resonate. Recognize it. I love seeing those nods. That tells me this truth lands for you. Celebrating small wins validates the audience's response and encourages further engagement. It creates a virtuous cycle. The more they respond, the more you adapt, the more they engage. Close the loop. As you near your conclusion, reaffirm that you've been listening. Reference the room one final time. Looking around, I see energy, I see understanding, I see readiness to take the next step. This closing check-in assures your audience that they've been seen and heard. It cements the connection you've built throughout your unprepared speech. Key takeaway: your audience is not just recipients of your words, they are partners in the conversation. By tuning into their nonverbal cues, matching their energy, inviting micro-interactions, and adapting in real time, you turn spontaneous speaking from a gamble into a collaborative experience. Reading the room is not optional. It's essential to making your unprepared speech feel purposeful, relevant, and unforgettable. Harness emotions, not just words. Words are the vehicle, but emotion is the engine. When you speak without preparation, you may not have a polished script, but you do have a beating heart, and that heart is your greatest asset. The most unforgettable speakers don't just deliver content, they make you feel something. And in impromptu moments, your emotional connection can often speak louder than perfect phrasing ever could. Think of the last time you were moved by someone's words. Chances are it wasn't because they used sophisticated vocabulary. It was because they spoke from a place of passion, sincerity, or conviction. When you're unprepared, lean into that. Speak from what you believe. Speak from what you've lived. Speak from what moves you. Your emotional tone, be it excitement, urgency, empathy, or resolve, gives color and shape to your message. People might forget your exact words, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So if you're nervous, let that translate into honesty. If you're inspired, let it shine. If you care deeply about what you're saying, don't hide it, highlight it. This doesn't mean being dramatic or overly sentimental. It means being real. Let your voice reflect your heart. Let your expressions mirror your belief. Let your energy align with your message. In impromptu speaking, emotional authenticity creates instant connection. It bridges the gap between uncertainty and confidence. It brings warmth to raw speech, and above all, it reminds your audience that you're not just delivering information, you're sharing a part of yourself. When you harness emotions, not just words, you unlock the kind of impact that preparation alone can never achieve. 8. Speak to serve, not to impress. In the moments when you don't have time to prepare, the temptation to impress can become a trap. You may feel pressure to sound brilliant, eloquent, or unforgettable. But let me tell you this truth. The most powerful speeches don't come from a place of trying to impress. They come from a place of seeking to serve. When your motive shifts from performance to purpose, everything changes. Instead of focusing on how you sound, you focus on how they feel. Instead of obsessing over how you're perceived, you center your heart on how you can help. And that shift, that humble redirection, creates authenticity, and authenticity is magnetic. Your audience doesn't need a perfect speaker. They need an honest one. They don't need fireworks. They need someone who sees them, speaks to them, and offers something of value. Whether it's encouragement, insight, hope, clarity, or challenge, your words, even spoken off the cuff, can meet a real need. But only if your aim is to lift them, not elevate yourself. Service silences fear. When you speak to serve, nervousness takes a back seat. Why? Because your focus isn't on your performance, it's on your mission. That mental shift frees your voice and grounds your presence. So the next time you're called to speak without preparation, ask yourself one question. Who am I here to serve? If you answer that with sincerity, the right words will often come. Not because you rehearsed them, but because they flowed from the right motive. To speak without preparation, speak with intention, speak with compassion, speak to serve, not to impress. And you will always leave a lasting impact. 9. Train in spontaneity. Practice the unscripted life. The greatest mistake people make about speaking without preparation is believing it starts the moment you're handed the mic. It doesn't. Speaking without preparation begins long before the stage. It begins in the way you live, the way you think, the way you stay ready even when no one is watching. You must train in spontaneity. You must learn to live an unscripted life with a prepared spirit. You don't become spontaneous by waiting for the moment. You become spontaneous by welcoming life's daily unpredictability and learning how to respond with wisdom, not worry. When you speak without a script, you are simply revealing what's already been formed in the secret place. That's why spontaneous speaking isn't about being clever. It's about being full of truth, full of clarity, full of stories, observations, and convictions that were cultivated in your everyday walk. This means you must practice expressing yourself in low-pressure settings. Don't wait for the big stage. Speak in daily conversations with clarity. Practice making points in casual discussions. Reflect out loud when you're teaching, leading, helping, or even journaling. When you live with awareness and intentional communication, your mind sharpens. Your words flow more naturally. Spontaneity becomes less of a panic and more of a practiced art. Great speakers don't always memorize scripts. They prepare their souls. They fill their minds with ideas, their hearts with passion, and their mouths with sincerity. So when the moment comes and the lights hit your face, you're not grasping for words. You're reaching into the well of a life that's already overflowing. Train in spontaneity. Don't wait for moments to come to you. Prepare for them as if they already belong to you. Live ready. Think deeply. Speak freely. And when life hands you the microphone without warning, you'll be able to step up with confidence, not because you had a script, but because your soul was already speaking, long before your mouth opened. 10. Silence is a tool, not a threat. In a world obsessed with noise, silence feels threatening. Many fear it. Many rush to fill it. But what if silence wasn't your enemy? What if it was your most powerful ally? The truth is, silence is not the absence of power. It's the amplifier of purpose. It doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're listening. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise. When you learn to embrace silence, you unlock a new level of authority. Because people don't remember the speaker who talked the fastest. They remember the one who knew when not to speak. Silence, used correctly, creates gravity. It builds anticipation. It adds weight to your next sentence. The greatest communicators in history didn't just know what to say. They knew when to stop speaking. But silence is not just for others. It's for you. It's in the silence that your thoughts settle and truth surfaces. It's in the pause that God speaks, that clarity rises, that presence becomes real. In a culture that demands instant reactions, you become dangerous when you learn to be still. Why? Because stillness is strategy. Stillness is strength. Stillness is the soil where insight grows. So don't be afraid of silence in your speech or in your life. Use it, master it. Let the world grow uncomfortable in the pause while you grow deeper in the presence. For when your voice returns, it will return with power, precision, and purpose. Silence is not a void to be feared. It is a tool to be wielded. Those who master silence don't lose influence, they command it. Conclusion, let your voice carry purpose, not just volume. What you just heard wasn't merely about public speaking. It was about becoming. It was about becoming. It was about transforming your presence, your mindset, your mission. Speaking isn't just a tool to communicate. It is a calling to carry impact, to transfer conviction, to shape hearts and stir spirits. But it begins not with the lips, but with a life behind them. You don't need to shout to be heard. You need to live what you speak. Let every word you release be soaked in truth, forged in fire, and released with intention. You're not just speaking to be liked. You're speaking to awaken, to heal, to deliver, to reveal. Because your voice isn't just for performance, it's for purpose. In a world intoxicated by polished delivery and shallow charisma, may you rise with raw authenticity, with burning compassion, and with a depth the world cannot deny. Harness your emotions, speak to serve, practice the unscripted, and remember the most powerful sentence you'll ever say might be the one you almost didn't. So step up, speak out, not to impress, but to impact, not to gain applause, but to ignite transformation. Your voice, when yielded to something greater, can shake atmospheres and unlock destinies. Thank you from the depths of my heart for journeying with me through this message. Your time is sacred. And I don't take it lightly that you gave a part of your life to listen, reflect, and grow. My hope is that you leave not just with notes, but with a new voice rising within you, one filled with clarity, conviction, and courage. May your words bring life. May your silence speak volumes. And may your voice never again be wasted on noise, but spent building lives, shifting atmospheres, and fulfilling the purpose for which you were born. Thank you, and keep rising.